Welcome everyone to Vintage Noise. This is our channel, and today, well, we're digging into a really foundational car.
We are. We're looking at the one that pretty much started it all for Porsche as we know them today.
Exactly. The Porsche 356, specifically the 1100 model, built between 1950 and 1954.
This is the genesis of the Stuttgart sports car story, the transition from, that Austrian engineering house to a proper German car maker.
Yeah, the very first 356 built right there in Stuttgart.
Mm-hmm.
And the name is interesting, isn't it? The Pre-A.
Right. It sounds official, but it wasn't what they called it back then.
No, they came later. Years later, actually. It was basically a way to label that first kind of chaotic but brilliant learning phase.
Before things got more standardized with the 356A model, it defines that whole bootstrapping era for them.
You really get a sense of how tight things were financially after the war.
Oh, absolutely precarious. They didn't just have a big pile of cash to start German production.
Talking about how did they fund it?
Well, it was a mix. They had license fees coming in from Volkswagen, some rent money that had built up during the war years,
Okay.
and critically, upfront money from dealers, people essentially paying for cars that hadn't been built yet.
Wow. That's really starting a company on the edge, isn't it?
It is. Funding manufacturing with future sales and old debts, it must have put incredible pressure on them.
Right. Straight away. Pressure on schedules, on quality, everything.
It did, but maybe it also forced them to focus intensely. They just had to get it right.
So the first car rolls out.
Yes, the very first German-built one. It was a split-window coupe finished in the spring of 1950.
And they needed to show it off, right? Make some noise.
Immediately. They took it straight to the Paris Auto Show, the Salon de l'Automobile, and smartly, they linked it to Ferdinand Porsche's 50th anniversary in transport, going all the way back to the Lohner Porsche in 1900.
Clever marketing. So this wasn't just moving house from Austria to Germany. It was a fundamental shift in materials, too.
Correct. The Gmünd cars were aluminum-bodied. These new Stuttgart cars. Steel.
Which meant new processes, new suppliers.
And needing outside help almost immediately to handle the volume, they couldn't build them all in-house at first.
So they used coach builders.
Exactly. Reuter was the main one. They did the coupes and most of the cabriolets.
But you mentioned pressure.
Yeah, the demand ramped up fast. When Reuter got overloaded, they had to bring in another coach builder, Glasser, just to keep up with cabriolet orders. All this is happening right at the beginning.
It sounds hectic. And the production numbers show that urgency, don't they?
They really do. Within just a few months, they were building over 30 cars a month.
Which is already pretty good for a startup.
But by November 1950, so still in that first year, they hit 80 cars a month.
80. For a tiny, cash-strapped sports car company just finding its feet? That's amazing pace.
It really shows there was a hunger for this kind of car in post-war Europe. People wanted quality, something sporty.
Okay, so what was actually powering those first cars?
Yeah.
The base model, the 1100.
Yes. The Type 369 engine. This is where you see the, let's say, humble beginnings.
Humble is right. 40 horsepower in a sports car.
40 brake horsepower at 4,200 RPM.
Was that considered okay back in 1950? Or was it just what they had to work with because of the VW connection?
It was definitely adequate for the time, and remember, the car was light. It gave about 52 foot-pounds of torque.
Performance figures.
Top speed was actually pretty decent, 99 miles per hour, and 0-60 miles per hour in around 13.9 seconds. Not lightning fast, but respectable.
And the engine itself? Compression, carburetors.
Pretty modest. 7.0.1 compression ratio, fed by twin Solex 32 PBI carbs.
And those Volkswagen roots are really strong here, aren't they?
Undeniable. The block was essentially the VW 1086cc unit.
But not entirely VW.
No, the key difference was the cylinder head. Porsche designed their own heads, building on the design they'd used on the very last Gmünd cars from Austria.
So taking a reliable, available base, the VW block, and then improving its breathing, its performance potential.
That's the theme of the Pre-A, really. Constant, often low-cost refinement, making the most of what they had.
Okay, that makes sense from an engineering and cost perspective.
Yeah.
But sports car buyers, especially American ones, tend to want more power, right?
Absolutely. And that brings us across the Atlantic to a really key figure.
Max Hoffman.
Max Hoffman, the one and only importer for Porsche in America at the time, had his famous dealership right on Park Avenue in New York.
He wasn't just selling cars, was he? He was shaping the product.
Totally. He was like a market strategist for them. And a huge chunk of 356 production was going straight to him. Porsche needed him.
Incredible influence for one person. And I guess that influence only grew once the cars started proving themselves in competition.
Oh, definitely. The turning point was probably the 1951 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Right, they entered some cards.
3 of the aluminum Gmünd coupes raced. And they did well. It showed the world these little cars, derived from the Beetle architecture, were tough and reasonably quick.
Suddenly, it's not just a quirky road car. It's got racing pedigree.
Exactly. And that changes everything. The perception shifts.
And I bet that Le Mans' success immediately led to calls for more power. Like, okay, 40 horsepower was fine, but...
You got it. The market, probably nudged hard by Hoffman, demanded more. That base 1100cc engine quickly became just the starting point.
So they had to expand the engine range really fast.
Incredibly fast. By 1951, just a year after starting Stuttgart production, they'd already introduced 1300cc and 1500cc engine options.
Wow. How did they manage that so quickly?
Constant innovation. For the 1300, for instance, they used larger bore cylinders, finned aluminum ones with special chromed liners from Moly. They were figuring out cooling and durability on the fly for these harder working engines.
The pace just seems relentless.
It was. By 1953, they actually dropped the original 1100cc engine altogether.
Replaced by.
The 1300S, the Super. That S tells you performance was now the main game.
And then the ultimate pre-A engine arrived toward the end of this period.
Right. In 1955, the final year before the 356A officially launched, they introduced the legendary 4-cam Carrera motor, 1500cc, but pushing out 110 horsepower.
Hold on. From 40 horsepower in 1950 to 110 horsepower in 1955 on basically the same platform.
That's a pre-A story, staggering development speed.
But it wasn't just engines, was it? The car itself kept changing visually and mechanically.
Constantly. Around 1952, we moved from the early split-window cars to what often called the curved window era.
That split windshield must have looked dated pretty quickly.
It did. Replacing those 2 flat panes of glass with a single bent V-shaped windshield was a huge step visually. More modern, better airflow, too.
Did that require body changes?
Yep. Because of the curve, they had to subtly lengthen the front wings, the fenders, just a bit to meet the new glass line.
And they added some trim.
Yeah, that nice slim aluminum brightwork around the windshield and rear window gave it a more finished, slightly more upscale look.
And Hoffman's influence pops up again here, visibly.
Directly. The bumpers. Their position was changed in mid-1952, specifically because Max Hoffman requested it.
So he's basically dictating styling cues from New York.
When you're buying most of the production, you get listened to. It was just smart business for Porsche.
Beyond the looks, though, there were mechanical growing pains, weren't there?
Oh, yes. It shows they were still learning. A big one was the transmission. They introduced a much, much better synchromesh gearbox during this period.
Meaning the original one?
Wasn't great.
Clearly not up to the task, especially as engine power increased. It probably felt agricultural or wasn't strong enough.
So the jump in horsepower was stressing components designed for the earlier, lower-powered engines.
That's exactly it. You engineer for 40 horsepower, then suddenly you're throwing 60 or 70 horsepower through the same gearbox. It's not going to last. They had to upgrade it quickly. Classic case of building the plane while flying it.
Which brings us back to that more powerful 1500 engine, the non-Carrera one that came out around late 52. Right, the regular 1500 pushrod engine, that was a key engine, known for using some high-quality internal parts.
Like the crankshaft.
Yeah, sourced from Hearth, along with the connecting rods. And importantly, these used rolling bearing big ends.
Okay, for someone not deep into engine tech from the 50s, why were rolling bearings from a company like Hearth such a big deal?
It's all about handling higher revs and loads reliably. Standard engines used plain bearings, which rely on oil pressure. Rolling bearings, like ball or roller bearings, create less friction and can take more punishment at high RPM.
So essential for a sports car engine being pushed hard.
Absolutely non-negotiable if you wanted the engine to last. It let Porsche chase performance credibly without, engines blowing up all the time.
They really couldn't stop tinkering, could they? It wasn't just the engine and body. The interior got a significant makeover, too, around 52.
Right. This is where the 356 starts to feel less like a stripped-out special and more like a proper, slightly luxurious touring car.
What kind of changes are we talking about inside?
Little things that add up. The gauges, the instruments, they switched from the original stark white-on-black look to a softer green-on-black. Easier on the eyes, maybe?
More sophisticated, perhaps.
What else?
The wooden trim on top of the doors. The door caps, which were originally beechwood, they changed those to be painted the same color as the car's body. Cleaner look.
And usability improvements, things that made it easier to live with.
Big time. They finally added a sun visor for the passenger. Seems basic now, but wasn't standard at first.
Yeah. Right.
And they got rid of the slightly awkward dashboard switch for the indicators and put in a proper stalk on the steering column. Much more conventional, much easier to use while driving.
Okay. And comfort. Seats.
Big upgrade there.
Oh.
Fully reclining front seats were introduced with these quite prominent chrome hinges.
Makes it more of a grand tourer.
Exactly, and a really clever touch. The rear seats, which were tiny anyway, could be folded down completely flat.
Ah, creating actual usable luggage space. Suddenly, it wasn't just a weekend toy. You could actually pack some bags and go somewhere. Made it a much more versatile car.
So the whole car is maturing, becoming more refined, more usable. What about underneath? Chassis, suspension, controls.
Kept evolving there, too. The wheels went from 3 inches wide to 3.25 inches.
Wider rubber.
A little, but also the new wheels were lighter and, crucially, ventilated. They had slots or holes to help cool the brakes, essential as speeds climbed.
Good point. Brakes need all the help they can get.
And the throttle connection changed. They swapped out the original cable for a more direct metal rod linkage.
Better feel, right? More precise throttle response. Makes the car feel higher quality.
Exactly that. More responsive, less vague, and even simple things like how the fuel tank was mounted. They widened it slightly and secured it better with metal straps instead of just bolts.
It sounds like every single part was constantly being looked at and improved.
That's the essence of it. Continuous improvement, run by run. They learned, they adapted, they refined.
Which, looping back, helps explain why these early pre-A cars are pretty rare now, especially over here in the States.
Yeah, Hoffman was the main importer, the pipeline, but his really big volume orders didn't seem to kick in until around 1954.
Just as the pre-A period was ending and the official 356A was about to launch.
Right. So while the pre-A laid all the groundwork, established the brand, the actual number of those very early transitional cars that made it over here is relatively small. They represent maybe 5 years of really intense, high-pressure development.
So when you look back at this whole pre-A journey, from that first split-window car funded on, well, hope and IOUs.
Pretty much. Using VW fees and rent money.
It really is the story of Porsche figuring out who they were, finding their identity through just relentless, constant change.
I think the key takeaway is that this learning period, as you called it, it really baked in the company's DNA. That drive for continuous improvement, responding to the market, pushing performance.
They never just sat back.
Yeah.
Not for a single model year, it seems.
Nope. From a split window and 40 horsepower to a curved window, better gearbox, nicer interior, and engines, all the way up to that complex 110 horsepower Carrera motor, all within the same basic 356 shape.
The pre-A was like Porsche's public beta test, their proving ground for building a sports car company that could last. And it showed they wouldn't just launch something, they'd immediately start fixing it, improving it, often based on what Max Hoffman told them he needed for Park Avenue.
Yeah. Which leaves you with a pretty interesting thought, doesn't it?
Go on.
Just think about the sheer challenge, logistically, technically. How does a company that small, under that much financial strain, manage the R&D, the suppliers, the production changes? To go from a 40-horsepower VW-based car to designing, developing, and building something as sophisticated as that 4-cam Carrera engine, all in just 5 years. That incredible rate of evolution under intense pressure, that's the real story of the Porsche Pre-A.